Thank you for over 100K views on the first part of the villain series. That is a really, really big deal for me, and I really appreciate it from you guys. Thank you so much, my darling. If you want to watch it again and support even more, or watch more of your crazy, caring villain, please click the link in the description for the playlist. Thank you. My darling, how are you, sweet? Hey, wait, please. Look, I know you're still mad at me, but just listen to me while I still have you on the other side of the door. I got really crazy, okay? And I didn't mean to make you scared of me. I just freaked out over nothing. Please just let me in. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I scared you, and I'm sorry that I hurt you. Okay? At the beginning you said you would be okay with sticking to the whole revenge thing, and I took you in and took care of you, so I thought that you would be okay getting revenge on your dumb best friend, which by the way is a lot more stupid than I thought. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry I scared you. I'm sorry I hurt you, and I'm sorry that I lost control. Just please let me make it up to you. I won't do anything drastic, I promise. Just please open the door and let me make it up to you, okay? I even have something for you. Something to help you. Please, darling, let me in. Thank you. I even have some tea for you. Rosemary tea. I heard it's good for relaxation and reducing anxiety. I made it just for you, darling. How are you feeling overall, my sweet, despite what happened last week? I'm glad you're okay. How are your marks? What? I was talking about your bruises? Yeah, they seem to be healing nicely. My sweet. How am I? Oh, I'm quite okay. Yes, I've been continuing my evil business, as you call it. You should have seen the news report just this morning. They were talking about how some random woman reported to have been missing her pearl necklace. The pearl necklace from Chanel from the 1930s that costed a lot of money. I know it didn't expand that far, but it was a really good model. Oh, I didn't steal it, my sweet. I just took it back. It's not stealing if I'm gonna treat it better than the previous owner, I think. And it's my terms anyway, it doesn't really matter. Look, my sweet, I heard from my guards that you haven't been sleeping properly. You've been having a hard time sleeping through the night. What's wrong, sweetie? I'm sorry, my darling. I'm sorry you're going through that, sweetie. Come here. You can be a really big pain sometimes, but you're so incredible. Gorgeous baby like you. A handmade human of perfection from God blessing me. Yeah? I'll tuck you in bed. Let me read you a beautiful story, darling. Yeah? Of course. Get in bed, sweetie. Here, darling. I'll read to you a personal story of mine. It's called A Quiet Love. Chapter 1. The Weight of the Past. The soft clink of her coffee cup against the saucer echoed in the quiet cafe. She stared out the window, her eyes unfocused as the rain drizzled down the glass. The world outside felt distant, as though it were happening to someone else. It had been over a year since the breakup, and yet it still felt fresh. She could remember the way it felt to have her trust shattered like that. He had been her world, her partner, her future, her fiancé. until the betrayal hit as sharp and sudden as a knife to the chest. He had lied, and she believed him until the truth surfaced in the form of another woman, another life he had been leading behind her back. Since then, she has lived in the quiet aftermath of a heartbreak. The days had felt like a stranger to herself, like the person she had been before the betrayal had disappeared. Her friends and family keep telling that time heals all wounds, but that sounded irrelevant in that case. Time doesn't erase pain. She swirled the coffee in her mug, lost in thought, when the door to the cafe opened with the familiar jiggle of the bell. A man stepped inside, shaking off the rain from his coat. She didn't pay him any attention at first, until she noticed the way he looked around, hesitating, as though he was trying to decide if he belonged here. The man caught her gaze, and for a moment their eyes locked. He gave her a small, uncertain smile. "Do you mind if I sit here?" he asked, his voice kind. She blinked, caught off guard, and simply, there was no rush in his words, no pressure. It was a casual interaction. It felt different. She glanced around. Most of the tables were taken, and the cafe felt unusually quiet today. She nodded slowly, a small gesture of permission. He sat down across from her, but didn't immediately speak for a while. They both just sat there in silence that felt natural. The man offered a coffee from the barista, his tone polite but not eager. He seemed patient, unlike most people who came and went, filling every space with noise and expectations. He said after a few minutes, "I'm Liam." The air between them had softened. She replied, offering a tentative smile. "Grace." Liam didn't ask her why she was sitting alone or what had brought her to the cafe on a gray day. He just sat there, sipping his drink, respecting the silence she had offered him. It was an odd comfort, one she hadn't realized that she needed until now. Chapter 2. Slowly and gradually. Over the next few weeks, Grace found herself returning to that same cafe more often. It wasn't because of a particular craving for coffee, but because somehow Liam always seemed to be there. Not every time, but enough that she began to notice him faster and look for him. It wasn't as if she wasn't disappointed about it or bored with it. In fact, she wasn't even expecting anything. It was just that presence. Liam always sat in the corner, reading a book or typing on his laptop. Always working quietly, never intruding on anyone else's space. But if Grace came in and there was an empty seat across from him, he'd always smile and she'd sit. There was no rush between them, no grand gestures, no over-the-top flirting. It was a slow and steady connection. They talked sometimes, but more often than not, they simply shared a space. He was present without demanding her attention. One afternoon, Grace arrived, her mind heavy with the weight of an email from her lawyer, a reminder that the divorce process with her ex was still dragging on. It hurt in ways she hadn't anticipated. The uncertainty, the reminders of life she thought she had, it was just overwhelming. Liam was sitting by the window that day, going about his usual business. When she sat down, he looked up, his eyes briefly meeting hers. And then, almost without thinking, he asked, "Everything okay?" It was a simple question. It wasn't intrusive, but it was real. She hesitated, unsure of how to answer. Her first instinct was to brush it off, to smile and say she was fine. But she felt different. She felt something shift inside her. It was as if her walls she'd built around herself, that they were starting to crumble. "I'm struggling," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I'd be okay by now, but I'm not." Liam's expression softened, but he didn't try to fix it. He didn't offer her anything that would try to explain away from her pain. He was supportive. He just nodded. It's okay to not be okay. There was something about the simplicity of his response, the way he accepted her pain without judgment, that made something inside her relax. She realized that she hadn't truly been seen in a long time, not in the way he was seeing her. He wasn't pushing her to get better or pretending that everything could be fixed in a day. He was just there. Chapter 3: The Unspoken Understanding. As the weeks passed, their interactions grew more natural. Sometimes they would talk about books or music, the city crises around them, but often they simply existed in the same space, and that quiet presence was enough for her. She learned small things about him, how he worked as a graphic designer and how he loved taking long walks through the city to clear his mind, and how he had recently moved to the area after a job transfer. He had never pried into her life, but there were moments, quiet ones, where she would find herself talking about her past, about that man, about the pain of betrayal and how difficult it was to trust again. And Liam, he never rushed her. He never told her to move on or to forget. He listened, his eyes always kind and never judgmental. One day, after another particularly difficult conversation about her ex-husband, she found herself looking at Liam more intently. "I don't know why I'm telling you all of this," she said. "I don't usually talk about this kind of thing." Liam smiled, a soft, understanding one. "You don't have to explain yourself. I'm just glad you feel safe enough to share." The words hit her like a wave. She hadn't realized how much she needed that feeling, the sense of safety. "You make it easy to trust you," she said shyly. Liam's expression softened further. "I don't want to rush anything when it comes to you. I just want to be here for you, for whatever you need." And that was all Grace needed. No grand declarations, no promises that he couldn't keep, just an offer of his presence, day after day, a steady commitment to being there when she needed him. It was amazing to feel this way. Chapter 4: A New Beginning. Months passed, and slowly Grace found herself opening up more. She began to let go of the pain, not because it was gone, but because she knew she didn't have to carry it alone anymore. Liam had become a part of her life, a quiet, unwavering presence. One chilly evening in the early spring, when the city streets were lined with blooming flowers, Liam invited her for a walk. They strolled through the park, the air crisp and fresh, and as they passed the lake, he stopped and turned to her. The sun was shining through them, making the silhouette romantic as a swan. "I'm glad you're here," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I know it's not safe, but I'm glad we're doing this, Grace. I'm glad we're finding our way together." For the first time in a long while, Grace felt the familiar stringing of hope, of a new beginning. She hadn't expected it to be so simple, so gradual, so perfect. But that, to her, is how love was supposed to be. Gentle, patient, real. "I'm glad too," she whispered, looking up at him. And in that moment, she realized something. Love stories and love bonds don't always have to be sudden sparks or grand gestures in the moment. They can be steady, quiet, and over time. Their breaths were shaky as he leaned in to a slow and soft romantic kiss. She had realized that the new chapter of her life was beginning, and she was ready for it. I love that story. Are you sleeping, my sweet? Thank you for forgiving me, and thank you for letting me tell you that story.